Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Dean. Thank you, Haas community, for having me back. It's been a while, but it's good to be here. I'm going to start today with a brief personal story. In June 2001, I graduated from the George Washington University undergrad, and my first day of my first real job, I found myself standing on a corner in Washington, D.C., wearing a full-bodied salmon foam costume, leading a group of 50 environmental activists in a chant, 2468, do not let the, 2468, please let the salmon procreate. Fast forward about a decade, I'm now leading sustainability initiatives at Fortune 1. It's true. We have about 11,000 stores. More than 200 million customers walk through a Walmart or one of our stores every week. So how in the world did this happen? I'm hoping to address that question and also think a little bit about why I mostly blame the Haas School of Business for the predicament that I'm in, and maybe share a couple lessons I learned along the way. In my talk, a survival guide to making the case for the causes you believe in. So why do you need a survival guide to make the case for the causes you believe in? This isn't a metaphor for climbing a snowy peak. This is about taking this mountain at its roots and lifting it up and moving it over here. That's not an easy thing to do. Imagine every day, every week, you're in dozens of meetings where you present the minority point of view. You are the crazy person in the room. You are always suggesting to people that they should change. There's one thing that people don't like to do, it's change. And you're always going to be presenting that idea. It ends up being frustrating. It ends up being difficult, and you run into a lot of walls. But it requires a certain kind of personality. So that leads me to my first lesson, which is that optimism is your salvation. When you are faced with the minority point of view every day, you have to be the one who believes that it will work. No one else will believe. You have to. When you run into brick walls, you have to be the one who comes up with the innovative solution to walk around that wall. Now, this is probably the most difficult lesson for me because I was raised by a Jewish mother in the Northeast, and there's one thing that Jewish mothers teach you, it is that they are all going to laugh at you. But pessimism and cynicism don't work in a corporate environment. You have to be the optimistic one. So that brings me to my next lesson, which is why don't you just go somewhere where people are ready to change? Because if you want to make impact, you have to go where you can make the most impact. That's how I have basically pathed my business career. I started in DC as a consultant and got really interested in the idea of how can corporate America play a role in the causes that I'm interested in. Where is that lever of change? That brought me to the Haas School of Business and the Center for Responsible Business. And then I started a project that I did in Kelly's class for a winery called Fetzer Wines. And they are owned by a company called Brown Forman. I ended up turning that into an internship, turning that to a full-time job for a company that makes spirits, wine, liquor, booze. And we're trying to figure out how do you make corporate responsibility work in the liquor industry. It's a pretty complicated topic. But if you can figure out how to make it work in a place like that, maybe you can figure out how to make it work in a place anywhere. And that is what brought me to Walmart, an opportunity for huge impact. But it's not without trade-offs. It is a personal choice to make that kind of commitment. When I think back about when I was at Haas, here's a list of about 5 things that I said I would never do. And I pretty much checked all of them off the list in my quest for more impact. Thankfully, I don't have a minivan yet, but I'm pretty sure that's right around the corner. So those are 2 lessons that I've learned about sort of career pathing. I also wanted to give you a couple lessons that I've learned on how to make an impact. Actually, how do you move the needle? So one key lesson, as I was reflecting on today, that I still have Kelly McElhaney's voice in the back of my head, focus on core competencies. It was a key lesson that we talked about while I was at Haas. And what we mean by that is integration. For a company like Jack Daniel's, you have to integrate sustainability and responsibility into the brand. For a company like Walmart, you have to integrate it into the core competency, the business model of the company, which is merchandising. It won't work if you're not on that core competency level. This is the core Walmart shopper. It's a Walmart mom. Now, I have a 1.5-year-old at home, and this is not what my shopping experience looks like. That baby is way too calm. When I am in the store, it is a mad dash to get out of that store as quickly as possible. And she's making those decisions about what products to throw in her cart in under 5 seconds. She's thinking about price, she's thinking about convenience, she's thinking about safety. Where does sustainability fit into that equation? Well, that is the key for making sustainability work at Walmart. We have a saying there, the customer is number one always. That is what everybody at Walmart is striving for, is servicing and serving the needs of that woman. So if we're going to make sustainability a driver, we have to be focusing on that core competency. It's not something separate, it's something integrated that actually leads towards that servicing of her needs. So my final lesson here, this is a lizard. I don't know the last time anybody here tried to make a rational argument to a lizard, but it doesn't work very well. And that's because they don't make rational decisions. They make emotional decisions. And I believe that humans also don't make rational decisions. We make emotional decisions that we rationalize. So what a major thing I learned at Haas and what I did through my coursework here is how to make the case, how to make a beautiful PowerPoint presentation and really convince, use the numbers. But that's table stakes. Anybody can do that. If you're really going to be inside a corporation or moving a cause forward, you need to think beyond that. You have to widen the lens to what are really the levers that have to be pulled, who, when, how, that are going to make that decision work. It's not just making a strong case, it's actually playing the game about where is that decision going to happen and how do you influence that. In corporate responsibility and sustainability, we have tons of responsibility and no authority. It's about influencing those people who have the authority. We are enablers, we are empowerers, we're not actually doers, which can be pretty frustrating too in and of itself. But the key point here is it doesn't matter how good your idea is if you can't communicate it in a way that resonates. In that case, it's just not a good idea anyway. So I'll leave you with a quote that made an impact on me lately. If you find yourself in a situation where you are the one presenting the craziest idea in the room, that's probably not a bad thing, it's probably a good thing. Thank you for your time.